everybody. Today I am going to be reading you one of my favorite books, Arnie the Doughnut by Lori Keller. This one has some great illustrations. Several years ago, we used this storybook for our summer school musical because I love it that much. I wanted to write songs about it. I think that was maybe 4 years ago now, so I don't know if any of you would have remembered it. If you did, you know it's a good one, so I think you'll enjoy it regardless. Okay. Arnie turned out to be just the kind of donut he hoped he'd be, chocolate covered with bright colored candy sprinkles. Look at all my sprinkles. There must be 1,000,000 of them. He was made very early in the morning at the downtown bakery, home of the best donuts around. Arnie was proud to be one of the best. He knew that people all over town made special trips to his bakery to buy donuts of their very own. As Arnie sat on the tray, which had just been placed in the donut case, he took a moment to reflect on the amazing things that happened to him that morning. He was cut into a ring, deep fried. I'm soaking in boiling grease, but I love it. There he is. He was cooled. He was iced. He was sprinkled. Sprinkle area, must wear safety goggles. And he was named. There he is with his name tag that says Arnie. Here's all the other donuts. I like these guys. Arnie looked around and saw all sorts of donuts sitting nearby. Howdy, Frenchie. The cruller, the French cruller. Bonjour, madame. Powdered. Oh dear, I'm so greasy. The extremely rare square donut. Long John. I prefer Long Jonathan. Chocolate zebra. The jelly-filled, ew, his brains are oozing out. The donut holes, cinnamon twist. The eclair, plain, iced chocolate, cream-filled. And there's our friend Arnie trying to talk with the apple fritter. He tried to strike up a conversation with the apple fritter on the next tray over, but she didn't seem to want to talk. How about that deep fryer? Any relation to Larry Fritter? Want to count my sprinkles? It is rather early. Maybe she's not a morning donut, Arnie supposed. It was 6 a.m., and the baker had just hung the open sign in the window. Arnie was fascinated as he watched customers stream into the bakery. One by one, donuts were chosen, placed in paper bags, and whisked away with their new owners. Some went by the dozen in giant boxes. Goodbye, Arnie yelled to each donut. Have a great trip. Oh, and here's this lady getting married. Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish this donut until the very last bite? This is so exciting. I wonder who will choose me. Just then, Arnie looked up and saw a man pointing right at him. Moi, says Arnie. Moi, pronounced moi, is the French word for me. He learned it from moi. Before he could say another word, he was pulled from the tray and placed in a paper bag of his very own. Thank you, Mr. Bing. Have a nice day. Arnie heard the baker say to the man, Mr. Bing, that's a fine name, Arnie decided. I can hardly wait to meet him. Goodbye, Arnie. The grand exit that Arnie is imagining. Arnie has a very vivid imagination. He thinks he's leaving on a red carpet with Mr. Bing. I don't think that's the case. The ride to Mr. Bing's apartment was a little bumpy. Arnie was grateful for the soft napkin the baker had so thoughtfully placed underneath him in the bag. He had never ridden in a car and wished he could look out the window to see all the sights. But more than anything, he wished he could meet Mr. Bing. Why does he keep me in this bag? Arnie wondered. Finally, the car came to a stop, and they were home. Mr. Bing carefully removed Arnie from his paper bag and placed him on a clean, shiny plate. What a handsome plate, Arnie said to himself. I'm not crazy about the design. I prefer a more modern look, but it's nothing a little paint can't fix. Mr. Bing gently lifted Arnie from his plate. Isn't that cute, thought Arnie, as he closed his eyes and smiled. He wants to hold me. As Arnie relaxed in Mr. Bing's hand, he felt himself moving higher and higher away from his plate. When he opened his eyes to see where he was going, he discovered that he was headed straight for Mr. Bing's open mouth. What are you doing? Arnie shouted. Look at him holding on to that mouth. He does not want in. Mr. Bing was stunned. He dropped Arnie back onto the plate. I was going to eat you, he replied in shock. Eat me, Arnie shrieked, his sprinkles flying everywhere. Why would you do a thing like that? Do you make a habit of eating all your house guests? No, of course not. So why then did it suddenly occur to you to eat me? Arnie demanded. Well, because you're a donut. That's what donuts are for, to eat. Do you mean to tell me you've done this before? Yes, I eat a donut every day, Mr. Bing said sheepishly. Arnie froze. He felt sick. Oh, and frightened. I better get out of here before he tries to eat me again. And angry. Well, that explains why my friends never write or call. They've probably all been eaten. He thought to himself for a moment. I must put a stop to this right away. I'll call the bakery and warn the others. Whoever's left, that is. Look at his little face there. Woohoo, he's formulated a plan. Arnie knew that there was no time to waste and that he needed to be very sneaky in order to keep his plan from Mr. Bing. He turned to Mr. Bing and he said in his sweetest voice, Excuse me, sir, but I don't believe we've been properly introduced. My name is Arnie. Hello, Arnie, Mr. Bing stammered. I'm Mr. Bing. It's nice to meet you. Meet you. Mr. Bing, would you be a dear and allow me to use your telephone? Arnie asked politely. Oh, well, okay, said Mr. Bing, and he handed Arnie the phone. As quickly as he could, Arnie dialed the number of the bakery. The baker answered the phone. Downtown Bakery, home of the best. Mr. Bakerman, Arnie frantically whispered. This is Arnie the Doughnut. Do you remember me? You made me at 5:15 this morning, and I was bought about 20 minutes ago by a man who goes by the name of Mr. Bing. Yes, Arnie, the baker answered. What can I do for you? Now, I don't want to alarm you, but just moments ago, that man tried to eat me. And not only that, he claims to have eaten hundreds of us. I'm going to make a run for it, but I wanted to warn you so that if you see him coming into the bakery again, you can stop him. Oh, my, Arnie. I thought you understood. That's why I make donuts for people to eat. I can't believe it, Arnie gasped. Are the other donuts aware of this arrangement? Well, I think so, the baker said. Let me ask them to make sure. Look at, he's showing signs of donut shock. He feels like someone punched a hole right through him. The baker yelled to the other donuts. Do you donuts know that you're going to be eaten? Yes, we know, the donut shouted back. We're delicious. See, they're all happy about it. Did you hear that, Arnie? The baker asked. Arnie was crushed. The phone dropped from his hand. He'd heard all he needed to hear. Arnie forgot all about his plans to escape. He collapsed back onto the plate, glanced up at Mr. Bing, and muttered, All right then, let's get this over with. Go ahead and eat me. So sad. Mr. Bing gazed down at Arnie. I'm not going to eat you, Arnie, he said reassuringly. I just wouldn't feel right about it now. Really? Arnie said with a huge sigh of relief. Well, I'm glad to see that you've come to your senses. But since I'm not going to eat you, Mr. Bing continued, I'll have to figure out something else to do with you. I paid good money for you, and I don't want to be wasteful. Of course not, Arnie agreed. All right, here we go. What we need to do is each make a list of things I can do with you instead of eating you. Between the two of us, I know we'll come up with something. Good plan, Mr. Bing, Arnie said. This will be a breeze. I bet I'm good at lots of stuff. They both feverishly wrote down their ideas. When they were finished, Mr. Bing asked, Would you like to read yours first? Sure thing, Mr. Bing, Arnie answered. Things Mr. Bing can do with me instead of eating me. Do you need a ballroom dance partner? No, I don't dance. You could use a personal fitness trainer. Drop in, give me 20. I'd get too sweaty. How about a portrait painter? Oh, heavens, no! Would you like me to entertain you at parties? Don't make my brown eyes blow. I wonder if he does weddings. He's fabulous. Wherever did you find him? I don't like throwing parties, said Mr. Bing. I could be your chauffeur. Look at Arnie driving the car. Let me get that in there. Look out for that tree. Relax. But you can't see over the steering wheel, said Mr. Bing. I'd make a great bodyguard. Who could you protect me from? A cookie? That's close enough, ma'am. I love Arnie's imagination. He's so cool. All righty, Mr. Bing, let's hear what you came up with. Okie dokie, he replied. I just know you'll like some of these. What do you think? Do you think Arnie's going to enjoy Mr. Bing's list? We'll find out. Things I can do with Arnie instead of eating him. I could use you as a pincushion. Ooh, too painful. How about an air freshener for my car? How about not? Would you like to be a picture frame? I don't imagine so. I need a new bowling ball. Well, don't look at me. You'd make a fine paperweight. Boring. Then what about a doorstop? Try again. But there was nothing else on Mr. Bing's list. They were both completely out of ideas. What shall happen? Arnie and Mr. Bing were exhausted. They felt terribly disappointed. After a few minutes of awkward silence, Mr. Bing finally spoke. I'm sorry, Arnie, but it's clear that we can't agree on anything for you to do around here. This is difficult for me to say, but I think it would be best if you found another home. I know, said Arnie, fighting back tears. I'll just be on my way then. Is it all right if I keep the napkin to pack up all my loose sprinkles? Of course, Mr. Bing replied sadly. As soon as I get a job, I'll pay you back the money you spent on me. That's not necessary, Arnie, said Mr. Bing. Arnie shook Mr. Bing's hand and thanked him for his kindness. Mr. Bing opened the door, and as Arnie left, he paused and said, I guess donuts really are only good for eating, aren't they? They both waved goodbye, and Arnie was gone. This one I'm going to do from a little bit further away so you can see. Here's Arnie way down here. He's walking the path, and here's Mr. Bing's house way over here. Mr. Bing stood at the window and watched as Arnie walked away. He walked past the flower beds, the mailboxes, and the apartment manager's office. He passed the tennis court, the swimming pool, and the clubhouse. But when Arnie reached the No Dogs Allowed sign at the end of the driveway, Mr. Bing suddenly came up with a new idea. What could it be? Arnie, Arnie, wait up, yelled Mr. Bing as he ran after him. Arnie turned back and stopped. When Mr. Bing caught up with him, he was out of breath. I can't believe I didn't think of this earlier, Mr. Bing panted. Arnie, I've always wanted a dog and could never have one because they're not allowed here. But there's no sign that says no donuts allowed. Arnie perked up when he realized what Mr. Bing was thinking. Would you like to take walks and play fetch? Mr. Bing asked excitedly. You bet I would. Can you do tricks like rolling over? Rolling over? Look at me. I was made for rolling over. Well, then, there's only one thing left to ask, Arnie. Will you be my donut dog? Oh, Mr. Bing, I would love to be your donut dog. From that moment on, Arnie and Mr. Bing were inseparable. Arnie liked being a donut dog even better than he liked being a donut. Get it, Arnie? He's playing some fetch. I got the deluxe package. Look at, he went to the salon and he's sticking his head out the window just like other dogs do. He went through a short phase of chewing on furniture and barking at the mailman, but after a crash course in obedience school, he graduated first in his class. Everywhere the two of them went, people would stop to pet Arnie. No one had ever seen a donut dog before. You're so sticky. Yes, you are. I love that Arnie got a napkin. Arnie and Mr. Bing had so much fun together. Arnie was the best pet Mr. Bing could ever have hoped for, and Mr. Bing was Arnie's best friend. Beware of donut. The end. I hope you all loved my favorite book, Arnie the Doughnut. All right, kids, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.